Hello, everybody. It's Michael Jaco with Unleashing Intuition Secrets, joined once again by Ismael Perez, author of Our Cosmic Origin and the Secret Government. He's come on today to share with us cosmic wisdom from the Galactics. We always appreciate you coming on, Ismael. Thanks so much.
Oh, it's always a great honor and pleasure to collaborate with other truthers. Thank you, Jacob, for having me here.
Yeah, definitely. So, what's on your radar right now?
Well, as you know, and as many of the viewers know, that Xi Jinping Trump meeting a little less than a week ago was a huge move for the alliance, in favor of the alliance,
Yeah,
and a lot of it ties in with what the Galactics have been doing from behind the scenes as they are meeting with the world leaders, especially the three superpowers, Putin, Xi Jinping, and of course Donald J. Trump. But it turns out that they've also met with the leaders of the different countries that are aligned with the alliance, and that includes Brazil, India, and this whole meeting that's been happening with the Galactics in the last few weeks. It's all about disclosure. It turns out that we are not the only country that has secret treaties with non-terrestrials, that have established secret space programs, that have reversed engineered alien craft. There are at least about 79 other countries, including Brazil and India, that also have a classified program. And believe it or not, Michael, to our surprise, China's CCP party was actually installed and manipulated by the House of Rothschild.
yeah,
So that explains the pressure that was put on Xi Jinping in the last years since the rise of the CCP party. It turns out that there is a parallel to the CCP that was trying to emerge, but to no avail until the meeting with Trump, and that was the Republic of China, which is totally alliance. And so many things happen as a result of this, I would say, geopolitical chess move slash significant world-changing meeting. And on a surface level, most people think it's about treaties, and most people think it's about, you could say, tariffs or perhaps even technology, but it goes much deeper than that. It turns out that a lot of these world leaders have actually, as mentioned, been meeting and been, you could say, compelled by members of the Galactic Alliance, or else, in fact, they were actually given a deadline based on my connections with Commander Valiant Thor, who is one of the main liaisons between the Earth Alliance and, of course, the Galactic Alliance. And from what I hear is that all of the world governments have been warned. And of course, this explains the warning, the special meeting that took place with these pastors about 2 weeks ago in terms of preparing their congregations for the revelations. And of course, this also ties in with the recent leaks and declassification of UFOs and of course, documentations just within the last 24 hours. On Fox News, they've already disclosed 4 different types of non-terrestrials. The first one that they disclosed are the Nordics. The second group that they disclosed within the last 24 hours are the Greys, as well as the Draco reptilians.
yep,
And the fourth group that they've already disclosed on Fox News is the insectoids and the mantis. So those are
wow,
the 4 different types that have already been pretty much released to the general public, and it's all over the media. It's all over the
excellent,
news.
Ismael. Excellent, good job,
Yeah,
good
absolutely. So,
research.
there's a lot of pressure happening right now. It turns out that the world governments have a deadline, and if they don't fulfill what they were told to do by the Galactics, it's game over. In a sense where the Galactic Alliance will execute an emergency mass appearance, which at that point it would be inevitable to disclose, or inevitable to conceal. I'm sorry. Everyone will know when you have huge mother crafts and craft shown everywhere, millions of motherships hovering over huge cities like Los Angeles and New York. So that's the stipulation. That is what's going to be happening if they don't release everything by the end of this year. I think the deadline is perhaps at the end of November. So the Galactics are trying to be lenient as much as possible. And they also know that based on what we've been using for the last century or two is no longer working for neither the planet or the species. So this whole idea of the petrochemical ways of harnessing or utilizing for travel and so on and so forth is old school. And the three major superpowers are already in alignment in terms of using that as an excuse, right? All of a sudden, the Strait of Hormuz is causing massive energy deficiency, according to the International Energy Agency, where I think Europe only has about 4 weeks left of jet fuel, if that. And so what's happening now is that the three major superpowers, with, of course, the dismantling of the CCP, which had Xi Jinping by his balls, but of course, that's no longer the case, as the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds are losing power due to what's happening right now with Iran. We're pretty much draining their blood supply. And so overall, all of this is affecting the European Union, which is what we called the resurrection of the Holy Roman Empire, the globalism. And so the three superpowers are aligned, along with Brazil and over 57 nations, to begin disclosing to their citizens everything that they know, everything that they've been hiding from the general public regarding the truth about non-terrestrials and advanced technology. So yeah, we're definitely going to start witnessing some massive revelations, my friend.
Fantastic. And, you talk about the Dracos and the Orions and so forth. Everybody thinks that they just came here and just took over Earth. No, they took over, or they hammered our whole solar system. The asteroid belt is a remnant of a world that they hammered and then came in and started taking over all the different worlds. So what are your thoughts on that, and how the Galactics and those of us that are in secret space program and so forth, how we're pushing back on that?
Well, this whole conflict with the Draco is millions of years old.
Yeah.
It actually originated approximately over 500 million years ago in Lyra. So just recently, within the last few years, we have been seeing a huge house cleansing taking place, not only here within our own solar system, in these underground subterranean bases and so on and so forth, where they have developed secret cities, by the way, that have been using technologies that are 500-600 years ahead of the general public. But this whole house cleansing of the Draco Orion Empire has been nullified within the last couple of years, more so than anything. And it was approximately 11 months ago, back in August of 2025, where the entire galactic war with the Draco ended in favor of the benevolent, positive civilization. So since August of 2025, a lot of the super soldiers that were working in collaboration with members of the Galactic Alliance before 2022, the Galactic Federation, as there was a huge infiltration by the Mitra Collective and the what they call the Animus Etorian groups. But we've been seeing a massive cleansing and defeat of the Draconians throughout the entire Milky Way for the last 8 months. And so the last few Draconians that were left were actually still pulling the strings from what is known as pocket realities. What are pocket realities? Some of your audiences are probably asking, well, pocket realities are concealed realms that cannot be penetrated by society, that exist and you actually access it through a portal. You open up a portal, but as soon as you close the portal, you're in a totally different reality world environment that nobody else on the surface world would ever even know. You close the portal, those are pocket realities. And the technology to create pocket realities has been used for millions of years. So these last few reptilians that were still pulling the strings, the cabal strings in the last couple of years have been hiding in these pocket realities. And with the advent of 3i Atlas about 9 months ago, and of course with the help of the Jupiter Command, which is the main headquarters representing our local star cluster here in our solar system, those pocket realities were penetrated within the last few months, which means that those last remnants of draconians that were still operating through these pocket realities and then popping into our reality at will, and then of course popping right back to their pocket reality so nobody else could detect them, have been also dismantled. And so what we're now seeing is a clean cleansing, or rather a cleanup of what remains of their human, let's just call them lab-grown human puppets, because none of these families have souls. All of the originals that had souls were actually taken out between 2017 2021. That's when they took out the real Hillary, the real Bill Gates, the real Fauci. So what we're seeing now are inorganic robotic replacements that were, of course, installed by the negative cosmic AI, who is pretty much the enemy in this whole thing. But again, we don't really have to worry about that cosmic AI, because from what the Galactics have been telling me is that that technocratic timeline is going to split into its own reality, and the organic ascending positive timeline that is going to precipitate with the disclosures, the rolling out of free energy, medical pods, modalities, advanced technologies, that is going to catapult our planet into the golden age within days, is going to separate and go into its own stream of reality, where all of a sudden we're going to see some sort of splitting of worlds, energetically that is, or splitting of timelines. So that's what I was told. I was told that a lot of the light workers on the planet, a lot of the volunteers that are here, that have been coming in since the 40s and 50s, are actually helping the collective shift into the organic timeline when this split takes place. So right now, all of these timelines are existing simultaneously. We have like six, what they call 6 prominent negative timelines, and then 6 positive prominent timelines. So it's a total of 12. So it seems like the way it works is, before we have this multidimensional convergence where everything collapses into only 2 or 3 definite timelines, all of the, you could say, probable Earth realities that have been kind of coexisting simultaneously for a long time eventually condense or collapse into 12, and then those 12 eventually collapse into 3. So that's what I was told. I was told that those that are on the path of spirituality, those that are doing the work, those that are awakened, are not going to taste death. They're not going to be experiencing no cataclysm, doomsday type of event. They will be transitioning into this new Earth timeline, where we will begin seeing, of course, mass arrest of the inorganic robots that were replaced, or that had been placed in, when they took out the originals, and of course the rolling out of advanced technologies. So that's what I was told, and really we don't have nothing to worry about.
Do you think the U.S. is going to be the major source of the rollout of the high tech?
It's us, and then China and Brazil and India. Those are going to be the first countries that are going to be ahead of the game when it comes to rolling out this tech. And then all the other countries are going to follow, all the other countries that are also aligned with the alliance. And then when that happens, that's when we will know, of course, that the cabal is completely gone. At that point, we are going to be seeing the fall of the European Union, the World Economic Forum,
NATO, all that, yeah.
All that, NATO, exactly, yeah. And from what I heard is that NATO is trying so hard to initiate a coup and overthrow Putin. And of course, we know that prior to the Putin era, we know that the Bolsheviks that led to the communistic rise in Russia since the 50s, right, was all initiated by the Rothschilds.
Yeah, exactly.
So all of their puppet governments are falling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. And I mean, the city of London is kind of key, taking that down, and all of the things that Trump is doing, activating the different, coming in, talking to Xi Jinping, and now Putin is going over there to say, talk to him, and okay, what did Trump tell you, and what's the game plan? I know he left you some messages for me, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's very good, yeah.
Yeah, there was no coincidence that Putin and Xi Jinping had a meeting 5 days right after, 5 to 6 days right after Trump and Xi Jinping had a meeting. What I was told by Commander Valiant Thor is that a few weeks ago, members of the Space Command had met with Xi Jinping. They had met with several other world leaders, including the leaders of Brazil and India, and of course Trump, the real Trump, the one who is in undisclosed location. That is hiding. Of course, we know that the Trump in the White House is a standing actor, right? Protecting the real Trump. So what I was told is that they orchestrated the meeting of the three superpowers weeks in advance. So that explains why Putin and Trump, I don't know if you remember, about a few weeks ago, they had that 3-hour phone call. And then after that 3-hour phone call, they pretty much started planning their meetings. And what's fascinating is that Space Force, because Space Force is used to bleed out the advanced technology of Solar Warden, which is the positive program, the positive SSP. So Space Force, with its advanced tracking methods, was able to decloak a hidden city that was about 600 years ahead of the general public, that China developed back in 2009 to 2014. So this city has been in existence for over a decade. And apparently it was undetected by our satellites, by Google Earth, and of course, military technology. But of course, the Galactic Alliance had known about this. In fact, what I was told is that Xi Jinping, in secret, has been trying to overthrow, or at least you could say free himself from the tight grip that the CCP had over him, in order to allow the Republic of China to prevail. And so from what I was told is that this city was a mimicking of Tartaria. In fact, the blueprint that he received came from Putin. And I don't know if you know what Putin's been doing in the last year, but Putin's been revealing and disclosing the truth about Tartaria and how advanced they were.
That's fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. So they developed a city back in 2009 to 2012. It took them about a few years, where 2 million people, not just Chinese, but 2 million people who wanted to go off grid, because once you go into the city, you're no longer detected. It's almost like going off world. And according to the intel that I received, they had a name for this city. You know what they called it? They called it Operation Heaven. Heavens. I can't. For a minute there, I drew a blank. Heaven Complex or something to that effect. Heaven Complex. And again, this city was initiated by the Chinese Advanced Aerospace Covert Program. So they have it too, not just us, to see how civilization would prevail in isolation to the rest of the corrupt world governments. If that makes any sense. And according to the intel that I received, is that the 2 million people that were, of course, living in this city, and this was just revealed within the last 48 hours. I think not a lot of people have been talking about this, but this was one of the topics that was discussed between Trump and Xi Jinping. As soon as Space Force was able to decloak that city, Trump got on the phone with Xi Jinping and said, "Hey, you have technology that we need within, the private sector, advanced tech. We have it too, all right? We're already using it with Space Force." So what's happening is that the Galactics created this whole meeting scenario from these two people so that they could begin exchanging the knowledge and the blueprints that they both inherited over the course of the last 60 to 70 years. And the whole point of this is to initiate what they called Project I think they called it the Operation Global Disclosure Accords, and this Operation Global Disclosure Accords was actually signed by Xi Jinping and Trump. And so, yeah, that's what's really happening from behind the scenes. I mean, it's they're getting ready to not only end the old guard, the old globalist structure, their grid, but they're going to be restructuring the entire planet. So instead of having these 200 plus, almost 300 countries, which have all been controlled by a centralized, monopolized, whatever you call it, pyramidal type of structure, China, Russia, and the U.S. are going to be initiating the first super states. In other words,
Right.
Greenland is becoming part of the North American super state, as well as Canada. And word is that even Mexico is joining the super state. Well, that explains why the Mexican mafia has been at war with the Mexican government. The Mexican government had no option but to align with the White Hats in the dismantling of the Mexican mafia. And so the Mexican mafia is no longer in power, thank God. And then, of course, China is also going to expand into their super state. They're going to be taking Mongolia. They're going to be taking what's that island that they want? I forget the name of that. Haiti, not Haiti, but they're going to also expand to create their super state. And then Russia is also going to expand and create their super state. And the reason that they're doing this is because in order to create a functional golden dome, which is not only going to, you could say, protect us from, weapons, missiles, nuclear, stuff, but it needs to be global. In order for it to operate, this golden dome needs to encompass the entire planet. Taiwan, thank you. Somebody just threw it out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
that's
the timeline. This is what's happening right now. And don't get me wrong, until these timelines split into their own way, their own direction, we are going to still see the massive rollout of artificial intelligence, data centers, and so on and so forth. But when the split takes place, those that are vibrating, right? Energy attracts, that's the word, right? Energy attracts like energy. Those that are vibrating with the new Earth are going to shift into a reality where these data centers, these self-driving cars, these automatons, whatever you want to call them, will no longer exist. So right now they're all coexisting. And that's why, people are like, wait, I see this disclosure coming. They're beginning to release the UFO files and so on and so forth. But at the same time, we're seeing this massive installation of data centers everywhere in the country. So like, what's really going on, So.
Yeah, I don't see them as negative. I think they're a transition. They're going to help us transition. So they're not really saying much about it because it's going to be a positive. So they don't want to give up, exactly what they're going to be used for. Now, as far as like the Tartarian stuff, I believe we're going to see the Tartarian stuff come back on a massive scale. And also, do you see Europe being part of Russia?
A good chunk of Europe, Eastern Europe, is going to join the Russian Federation. Yes, and
so is Europe going to be separate, their own entity, or?
Well, what's happening is that there will be no more Europe as we know it.
Yeah.
The three federations are going to be the catalyst of 19 more federations that are going to also be developing. So, but it's going to start with the North American Peacock Federation. That's what I was told. It was going to be known as the Peacock Federation. And then that's going to be like that's going to be the Western Golden Dome. And then you're going to have the Eastern Federation divided by the Chinese superstate and the Russian Federation, which is going to initiate the Eastern Dome. And then once you have the rest of the countries dismantling and reorganizing into different federation blocks, a total of 22, what I was told, then at that point, the Golden Dome is going to be a global phenomena. And then, which is going to allow us to, at that point, begin what we called the initiation of space travel, creating colonies throughout our solar system, which they're already there. So we're basically just going to take over what the colonies that the secret space programs and these breakaway groups already established in the course of the last 80 years. So all of that stuff is going to be handed over to us. So basically, this whole plan at the underlying level of this agenda is to begin bleeding the breakaway civilization tier 2, which is almost 900 years ahead of the general public, and the surface world, in order to bring this technology to the surface people of the earth, so that the earth could no longer be an isolated world and it could be part of a greater interstellar community. So that's the end game. So yeah, they did say it's going to be a matter of a few years. From what I was told, they say 2028, 2030. That's when we're going to start seeing the new world structure. But between now and then, in the next few years, we're definitely going to see what we call the breakdown, which is the breakdown of the old paradigm.
Perfect.
Yeah, the breakdown of the old paradigm, right? And then followed by the restructuring of the 22 superstates, each with its own infrastructure, each running like a republic, and it's going to be government by the people and for the people. And from what I heard is that the original technocrats were actually taken to Gitmo. So that's, I don't know if that's true, but I heard that a lot of this AI that the Y-hats are going to be implementing is different than the AI that the deep state had already initiated or had implemented, and that this positive AI is supposed to override the negative AI. Now, I'm going to look more into that because, you know, I'm still very iffy when it comes to AI. I don't care if it's positive or if you started off as a positive thinking algorithm. You know, what if this thing reaches the level of super intelligence and eventually does its own thing and goes rogue? So that's the part that I still question. So again, you know, we're still in the process of, you could say, discovery. You know, we're still in the process of discovery as to what's really going on from behind the scenes. So I guess as long as we are doing the work and we're keeping our vibrations high, I was told that we don't have to worry about becoming part of some sort of global smart grid technocratic dystopia. You know, that's what I was told. I was told that timeline will exist, but not for the good people of the earth. You know, this is what many religious texts call the harvest.
And that's important, I think, for all of us to be very aware, because there are different timelines, like, you know, we've all been talking about. And to get the one that we want, we have to focus on that and be aware that these other ones are trying to manifest themselves. And there are people with evil intentions, really, that are trying to manifest them as well. So we have to watch for that and watch for those people who are doing that. And then eventually, you know, they won't exist in our reality, you know. With the potential of you know, causing problems and harm. So that's part of our awakening. That's going to be you know, traumatic for some people going forward, because things are going to change so much from what they used to be. The manipulation was so intense in so many different areas that it's, you know, there has to be a breaking down of those systems, kind of like what we're seeing in Iran, like we're seeing in Cuba. Like we saw in Venezuela, and like you mentioned, Mexico. So all these systems have to break down so that the good people can come and, you know, take over and you know, create the perfect environment that we want in the future. And
this is the same Hegelian dialect method that the cabal has been using for centuries, right? They create the problem, then people react to it, and then they offer the solution they wanted. I believe it was David Icke who used to talk about that. So the Alliance is playing them in their own game, right? They first have to have a reason. They first have to destabilize the old way of using energy, combustion, petrochemicals, so on and so forth, in order to have a reason to bring in free energy. And like I said, China already initiated a city that proved to the Galactics, with 2 million people that were taken off grid into the city, that was undetectable by radar. It was undetectable by any radar, any satellite, no Google Earth. All you saw was desert for miles, but there was a city there. very similar to a pocket reality, but a little different. And it proved to be a success. So, yeah, this is big. This is a big thing. That was an experiment to actually resurrect Tartaria, by the way, from what I was told. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens as a result of this new accord that was initiated by Trump and Xi Jinping.
Yeah, the Tartarian onion domes were, where they were able to broadcast the free energy and so forth. That moved a lot of the, machinery and, vehicles and so forth that were in a lot of these areas. And of course, that was taken down and destroyed. Napoleon coming in to try and take down, he was paid by the Rothschild to come in and take down Russia, and they nuked his army.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they also
running.
They also used that as an excuse to scare the British that the economy was collapsing, and then I guess they bought all the British gold or
Rothschild,
the whatever
out of Waterloo,
they were using. Yeah, they bought it all for like $1 a penny, and then at the end they're like, "Oh no, actually, we defeated Napoleon. Napoleon lost the war." So they duped the British too, and that's how they were able to take over the money supply of what we call now the European Union.
The City of London, all that, and they got rewarded with the Israel, and so Israel for last. That's the Rothschild that run Israel for last. So that'll be the last one, and then City of London collapses. It's it.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
It. Yeah.
And I was told that Trump is actually pretending, keep your enemies closer, pretending to befriend Bibi.
Sure.
I was told that Bibi is last because Bibi is. I don't know if I told you this, but Bibi was tasked to create the perfect android, non-human, that was supposed to connect to the internet and the quantum field. And that android is supposed to be the Antichrist. From what I was told is that in their underground facilities underneath Israel, which is connected via tunnels to the Vatican, and yeah, a lot of reptilians for centuries were actually running both the Vatican and the Holy Land with the organized religion, right? But
their offspring are still there. Yeah.
Yeah. What I was told is that the plan was to develop this android, that he was going to look very human. They were going to make him very handsome, of course. And because he was going to be connected to all technology, to everybody's laptop, to everybody's iPhone, to the internet, this guy was going to be all-knowing, and through technology, he was going to exert supernatural abilities, thus confusing and misleading many that he was the returned Messiah. And many would fall, of course, because they would have no clue that underneath the skin, he's all electrical, nuts and bolts instead of organs. But that's what I was told. I was told that that has a lot to do with the Kabbal's prophecy of the rise of the third temple in Israel.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Bibi's they blew him up. He's gone. So whatever that is definitely not Bibi. There
I'm so glad you're aligned with me. In fact, when this war started, the first 2 weeks of this war, I don't know if you remember, there was an incident where they took out the underground bunker that he was in. They managed to penetrate all the way down, and they took out Bibi. And so the replacement has been a digital type of deep fake AI. He's no longer around. They're just still maintaining the illusion that Bibi's around. Not a lot of people know that.
They're still taking out a lot of their underground facilities, like you were just talking about. They had what looked like a nuke that went off there. I think it was last night or the night before. So they said, "Oh, it was just we're destroying some of our munitions to get rid of some munitions." Yeah, whatever. But you look at that; it looks like a nuke went off.
Yeah, it did. And to be honest with you, I was told that members of the Galactic Alliance, and they have the ability to do so, they could appear or assume human form, put on an Iranian soldier outfit, and then go do the work, and then kind of revert back to their galactic selves, and then teleport back to their ship, and make it seem like it was part of the Iranian attack. I was told that was actually a Galactic Alliance job, that they needed to take out BB.
Yeah.
And Trump is aware of that. He's just kind of going along with the script, as they call it.
Yeah, definitely. And so, the future looks good. The political side, I think, is starting to look very, very positive. Trump is cleaning up all of the rhinos. That's happening tonight, or a lot of them are going away. And then I think we're going to see a really good red tsunami, really, for the first time. And, a lot of people predicted it for, I think 12 years, but this will be the first tsunami of red. And it's going to be, it's basically going to bring in all the good people that are going to, bring in the right laws and so forth. So it's going to make a lot of stuff easier. So the, conflict and, kinetic activity that we would have had to have had here in the United States is going to be eliminated for a great extent when we have a massive tsunami of red coming up.
Did you say a massive tsunami of red?
Yeah, like GOP, red wave.
Oh, yes. The GOP.
For the election, for the midterm.
Right. Yeah. It's November. It's
so everything's lining up for it. I mean,
November. That's the deadline that the Galactics gave the world governments to declassify everything that they've been hiding from the general public and to make it go live. Mainstream, as of course shown in Fox News. So that was kind of fascinating that they've already announced 3 types of extraterrestrials that we've been working with from behind the scenes.
Yeah. And some of them that we haven't been working with, they're kind of pretty much negative. So that's very interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have a lot of good things to look forward to as a collective.
Absolutely.
And, I always tell my viewers that because I believe in God, it's just not the religious way.
Right.
I do believe in a higher power. And I always tell my viewers that even evil was created only temporary. And at the highest level of reality, evil is used by God for whatever reason we can't even fathom here in the 3D. But of course, as we become, you could say, activated, and as we reach our full capacity and our memories come back, then we begin to see things from a different perspective. We begin to see contrast, polarity, challenges, antithesis as a blessing in disguise. And that's what I was told. I was told that that we have really nothing to worry about, that the positive timeline trajectory has been secured by John Trump and, of course, Nikola Tesla. John Trump was the professor at MIT in Massachusetts. He was the uncle of President Trump. And I don't know if you heard of the Triple Temporal Alliance, but the reason they're called the Triple Temporal Alliance is, get this, Michael, they were able to time travel back to 2,000 years ago to meet with John the Revelator, the author of the last book of the Bible, the book of Revelation, the Apocalypse, to pretty much write 2 parallel books. One book was going to be secretly preserved by the White Hats back then, which was operating through the secret society known as the Essenes. So even Jesus and Mary Magdalene in that secret society that they belonged to, that isolated themselves from the Roman Empire and the outer world as they were operating in secret, was the alliance in the past. So they call themselves the Triple Temporal Alliance because they operate from 2,000 years going back into the past. They also operate from the future as the Earth transitions into a Type 1 civilization, space age travel, or space age society. And they're also operating in the present. So triple, that's the name, Triple Temporal. Temporal means that they're operating on different or navigating different timelines. And because of that, they were able to develop, I guess what I'm trying to say is that not a lot of people know that Nikola Tesla perfected time travel 25 years before the military industrial complex, before the cabal did. And so by doing so, in a way, they had the upper hand. They were able to dismantle and neutralize every negative timeline that the cabal was initiating, also through time travel after Montauk and Project Pegasus through the late 50s. that they did. So the alliance was able to foresee every probable outcome, and they were able to undo it. So no matter what happens, everything's going to collapse into a positive timeline. In other words, where we win. And that's how the alliance works. The alliance is also, they operate temporally. It's not just here in the now. You know, we have members of the alliance that stretch back to 2,000 years ago that were interacting with Jesus, John the Revelator, and Mary Magdalene. And then we have members of the alliance that are coming from, 2,000 years into the future. So it's fascinating how it all works. And they're all meeting here. This is like the hub. This is where they're like, all right, this is it, And that explains why CERN was a big failure. CERN was supposed to destroy this current universe and initiate us into an alternative universe. And despite the fact that they managed to mess with the timeline to an extent where people were experiencing different circumstances. All of a sudden, the shows that they watched growing up as kids were saying different phrases, right? Luke, I am your father, for example. But that was part of the cabal's attempt to completely destroy the positive timeline. And they failed because of the fact that Nikola Tesla and John Trump were time traveling 25 years prior to the cabal achieving time travel.
Yeah, I have memories of the timeline wars, being involved in them. And we did. I'm glad you mentioned that. We did win those. And that was a little while ago. So they have no capability of doing anything on the future timelines. Exactly. We are the ones that are creating the timelines now. And like I mentioned earlier, focusing, our consciousness on what we want to create is what's going to happen. So I tell everybody, always think positive. So really, really makes a difference.
Yeah. And then when you get into consciousness studies, one of the things that they discovered is that our consciousness also creates reality. Like we're constantly changing reality based on our perception and how we think. So that's also another fact that we have to consider.
Definitely. Yeah. So any final things you want to bring up?
Other than just staying grounded and only focused on the positive timeline trajectory by not entertaining any fear porn or, Project Bluebeam or,
very good.
What is it? We're all going to be microchipped and we're all going to be forced into this new pandemic. One thing that Trump did announce in the last 48 hours is that he will not comply to the lockdown in the event, because he knows that this is another deep state attempt to, of course, mess with the midterms that are coming in a few months. And so Trump is aware, right? They did this to me once, but not the second time, he says, So he said it, that this time he's not going to lock the country down, that there will be no lockdown and there will be no mandatory devil's injection. So that's good news, right? We just have to stay focused. The alliance is doing their part, but also they want us to do our part. One of the things that the Galactics have been telling me for weeks is that the reason it's been taking so long to liberate your planet is because we can't just give you the liberation. We have to see an increase in human consciousness, expansion, awareness, awakening. If we don't see that, it has to be in direct proportion to us dismantling evil on the earth. So they want us to also meet them halfway. They want us to see an increase in the awakening process.
Yes.
And so that's one of the reasons why things have also been delayed, not to mention the timeline wars, right? But the point is that they can't just hand disclosure and liberation over to us when not enough people are awakened. They want, I think they want a significant amount of people to be awakened.
Yeah.
And I think there is a percentage, because once you hit that percentage, it's going to cause an automatic mass shift in human consciousness for those that are not awakening. And then as a result of that, it's going to be in perfect timing to, the liberation of the earth exposure, disclosure, and of course, bringing us into a golden age.
Beautiful. And your website, our cosmicorigin.com.
That is my handle. That's where you could find me. Find my links to all my channels, of course, my courses. Everything is through this one portal, our cosmicorigin.com. Yep.
Very nice.
Thank
you. your books too?
Yes, both of my books. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking, well, where does Ishmael get all his information? I would suggest that you guys order The Secret Government, because that's going to give you a thorough understanding of this war that's been going on between the Cabal and the Alliance going back to 6,000 years ago. Remember earlier I was talking about the Triple Temporal Alliance? Well, the Alliance is they've always been around. It just didn't start with JFK Sr., although he was a huge restorer of the plan. But it goes back to Lincoln, and then it even goes back to, believe it or not, back to Noah, Seth, Abraham, Isaac, King David, Solomon, and of course Jesus, Mary Magdalene.
Wow. Yeah. So that's amazing. Your books are really packed with information. I love our Cosmic Origin. It's an Audible. I wish you put this one in Audible too, so that way I could listen to it while I work out.
Absolutely.
But
goal to put that into Audible as well.
Good. And it's on Amazon, so you just tell them. I did my books. I just I can do that. So I just, boom, I did it. So that'd be awesome if you did that.
Absolutely.
Give yourself another, realm of people that, can access your information. So really, really good. All the stuff that you're doing is, I look to you because you're, you have some good conversations with very, very high up people that are making a difference in our awakening, the process. It's very, very good.
I see a lot of questions here in the chat too.
Yeah. And the questions in the chat were really good.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you see as far as your next work?
Well, believe it or not, Michael, I decided to write 2 books. One of them is called Cosmic Destiny, and that's going to be a re-explanation of the cosmic history involving the war against the AI god, Omega Metatron. And then it's also going to go into the future. What happens after the ascension? What happens after the Earth is now, repositioned at the center of the universe, and the kingdom of God is established here, and what happens after that, right? As we go into these new cycles of creation. And then the second book that I've been writing in the last year, which I just finished, I would say about a month ago, is actually The Cosmic Origin of Ismael Perez, which is an autobiography story of my life and what life was like as a kid, from the moment I became aware that I was human, 2-3 years old, to the present moment. So that's going to be more of me telling my life story, because a lot of people want to know about my history. In this community, I have people that love my work, and then I have a small group of people that think that because I came all of a sudden into the scene overnight back in 2022, I was on all these podcasts. A small group of people were assuming that I was a CIA plant or something. So I said, you know what, let me just write the story of my life so people could have an idea of everything I've been through to become who I am today, and all the struggles and challenges that I had to undergo. And not to mention, I think that a lot of people will relate to a lot of the hardships that I had to endure as a kid, as a teenager, and as a young adult. And so, that's the reason why I'm releasing this book as well.
Very good. Does it go into any other aspects of your life?
Absolutely. It goes into every aspect, I talk about how when I wrote our Cosmic Origin, it sat for about 10 years after I finished the manuscript, because the collective wasn't ready for this next level disclosure, galactic history beyond Atlantis, right? Back in 2015 and 12, people were still, getting their feet wet, learning about the cabal. Some people were diving deeper in the rabbit hole and learning about the alien programs or the advanced programs, covert programs, the alien treatises. And then some people were even getting their feet even wetter or diving deeper and learning about the secret space program. But, at that point, it was just like, is there anything more than just that? Well, yeah, there's a whole history to all of this. And it all ties in together. When you understand our cosmic origin, the human cosmic experiment that even transferred itself from other failed universes that were experiments that just didn't follow through, and how everything was by intelligent design, then you start seeing things differently, and you start seeing why things are unfolding the way they are. And then everything else will just make better sense when you begin to, of course, dive deep into the origins of the galactic human prototype. So I had to wait 10 years, Michael. Otherwise, if I would have published it back then in 2012, when I had finished the manuscript, people would have just thought that was another sci-fi piece of work. They wouldn't take me seriously. They would have said, oh, wow, okay, this guy's like Gene, whatever, the writer of Star Trek. They probably would have just threw me in that category and saw it as sci-fi instead of as the real suppressed history of the universe.
Wow, great. So it's been a pleasure having you on, Ismael. Yeah, always an honor to have you on, because you bring so much great information. I look forward to getting together with you on more shows in the future, and especially when you come out with those new books. So that'll be great.
Awesome, thank you. I appreciate that, Michael.
Definitely. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us. Hope you got a lot out of it, and we'll see you guys next time.